Cabin Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. He's to the drive. Deep left field. No doubt about it. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Welcome to another episode of Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. My man, unbreakable Mike Gibbons, back in the house tonight. How you doing, Mike?
I am good. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Coming up on Cabin Sports Radio, going to talk a little Canada Winter Games update. We gave you a full update on things last week, and we're going to talk to some Team NT speed skaters on this week's episode. Plus, NFL postseason wrap-up, where we are so far. Andy Murray retiring, and coming up next, going to rant about the NHL media. Stay tuned. Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
The CSR Podcast.
Cabin Sports Radio, as always, brought to you by our friends at Sport North, moving sport forward. Mike Gibbons, back in the house after a couple weeks away. How was your holiday, sir?
It was very good. It feels like I haven't been in this chair in a long time, but I guess it's been, three plus weeks now.
Yeah, it's been a bit. We only did one show without you, so don't feel too left out or anything.
Good.
You may notice in front of you, there was a little bit of creative decorating of the desk as the wheel filled in for you last week on Cabin Sports Radio as my guest host, and immediately broke the keyboard tray.
Oh, wow. Good.
First segment of the show.
Excellent.
Just came smashing into that one. Yeah.
I expect nothing less from the wheel. No, good trip. Good to be back. Did catch one Raptors game.
Nice.
New Year's Day, which happened to be actually Kawhi. He put up a career high in points, 45 points.
Nice.
Pascal Siakam also put up a career high in points, 28 points.
Yes,
which tells you the rest of the team probably didn't do too much. But we got a lot from them, and they ended up winning, covering the spread. It was a good time.
What more can you ask?
Right?
Did you make it out to a Leaf game, or tickets just through the roof, and you said, to hell with that?
My sister and her boyfriend went, and they had standing room tickets. I had no interest in standing room.
I didn't even know there was standing room.
They said they were paying $100, and they were going to stand the whole time.
$100 to stand the whole time?
That doesn't sound fun.
Holy.
That was against the Wild, too. Not even a really marquee game.
No.
And it was a stinker. They lost 4-3. And then I think they had the Canucks on the Saturday, which I think is January 5th. Better game. 4-0.
Much better.
4-0 win. But no. Decided in the end, we don't need to do this.
Standing?
The Raptors.
Man, I didn't even know that was a thing at NHL games.
Actually, I stand corrected. They got them through some employer. They didn't have to pay. I was thinking when we were in Vegas, we did have to pay $100 if we wanted to be in standing room against the Ducks when we were in Vegas earlier in October. But they still had to stand.
So they got to stand for free, though.
They stood for free, which is a huge difference. But you're still standing to watch a game. But
wow, learn something new.
If that's your cup of tea.
If that's exactly. All right, Mike. So we got lots to cover, lots going on in the world of sports this past week. As I mentioned on the intro, the Wheel and I did a little Canada Winter Games update as we are getting very, very close to this year's Canada Winter Games in Red Deer, Alberta. So we gave kind of a rundown of everything that's happened so far, where Team NT is at. And so this week, we've got Team NWT speed skating. Sorry, Team NT, get that W out of there.
Right, yeah.
It is just Team NT.
They rebranded.
Yes, 3 members of the Team NT speed skating team that will be representing us at this year's Canada Winter Games. In the house, coming up next, of course, NFL postseason going on. The divisional round is done.
Yeah.
We've got our conference final matchups ready to go. Very exciting stuff if you're an NFL fan. And also some interesting news as the Australian Open is underway. Andy Murray possibly retiring.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a bit more about that. But I want to start off tonight's show with a bit of a rant.
Yeah. You have the floor.
Okay.
Give it to us.
So, last week, when Cabin Sports Radio wrapped up, I got home and I was watching a bit of TV. And I think it was the second, maybe third, maybe even fourth time I heard this story come up. Basically, The quote being, are the NHL's stars being targeted? Open season on the NHL stars, the Sidney Crosbys, the Connor McDavids, the Steven Stamkoses, etc. The thought amongst the NHL media being that NHL stars, the players that we all pay good money to see and watch TV to watch them play hockey, are being targeted and there are players going after them and trying to hurt them. And the question was, what can we do about this? Why is it happening? And can anything be done by the NHL, by the players, by the fans? I don't know. I'm not really sure what kind of an answer they were looking for, but that was...
Don't hit them.
That was the argument. Are the NHL star players being targeted? My answer, yes. Of course they're being targeted. Yeah. They're the star players on the opposing team. They are the identified most dangerous player on the ice. If you're not paying them a little extra attention, you're probably not playing very good hockey. Now, I know they mean, are they being subjected to, like...
Danger.
Yeah. Exactly. Like something over and above. And I can't say I've necessarily seen that. The latest incident that kind of really brought this up, this whole flare up, was Elias Peterson.
Yeah.
When he got tangled up with the Canadiens' young star too, whose name I always escapes me. Kokalainen.
Okay. Yeah.
Koka something.
Yeah.
And some people thought that it was malicious. It seemed like the majority thought it was just an innocent kind of incident. Two players got tangled up with one another. Both went down. One went down more awkwardly than the other. It didn't look to me like there was any malicious intent there. But that seemed to really start this whole thing. And then they started pointing to other instances where there's been NHL star players who other players have taken liberties with.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that every other season, you can almost set your watch to this, and it almost happened this year. Someone tried to bring it up. You can pretty much set your watch that every year in the past 5 years, there is going to be an analyst who brings up the fighting thing, the topic. Is it time for the NHL to get rid of fighting? It's been an ongoing topic of conversation for years and years and years. When is enough enough? We are past the age of goons. There's no room for them on NHL rosters anymore. They don't contribute the way they used to. And with the instigator rule that was brought in, God knows how many years ago now, they don't really serve a purpose because there is not that element of the game where the stars are being protected by an instigator rule. So that's kind of where the issue is here. It's if you want the stars to be protected, you need to essentially get rid of that instigator rule because that would allow players to be like, hey, before you go after him, you might want to give that a second thought because if you do, I'm going to go after you.
Yeah.
And there's no silly little rule that is going to penalize our team further because you decided to be a jerk and go after Connor McDavid. There's nothing stopping that protection of your quote-unquote star player. But in this day and age where there is no goon anymore, we've kind of evolved past that. How do you reconcile that? Because all of the players, yes, there are still star players and there are still, players that kind of fill out the roster, plugs, if you will. So there's still a discrepancy, like a disparity between the best players in the league and the worst players in the league. That's just the way it's always going to be. But in theory, everyone's on the same level playing field.
Yeah.
There are no special players that get special rules or special treatment, even though, people have been saying for the last decade that Sidney Crosby is that player who gets special treatment. It's not actually a thing. He doesn't get special treatment from any other players. But so what do you do? What can you do to protect the players? You can't invent special rules that say you can't hit Sidney Crosby. You can't hit Connor McDavid. And you can't really make a parallel to other sports because if you look at football, for example, arguably the other most violent sport in the world, there are rules like that to protect the most important player on the roster, which is obviously the quarterback. There are certain rules put in place to protect the quarterback to limit their amount of injuries, thus make teams or keep teams as competitive as they can possibly be. That player on an NHL roster is the goaltender. There's no other player that is going to get that kind of special treatment because they're all essentially the same type of player. Yes, there's defensemen and forwards, but there are no rules, determining any difference in how they play or how they operate. Goaltender is obviously a different story. There's only 2 of them on your roster, and sometimes they're your best player, like a Carey Price, for example. Right. So you need special rules in place to protect those guys, and they do. But if you're going to say that we need to keep fighting out of the game at all costs, how do you think there is anything that is going to stop players from identifying the other team's best player and saying, let's give him a little bit extra?
Right.
What are you going to do?
And that is entirely the premise of playoff hockey. These games, regular season games, for the most part, aren't quite as important. They'll start to get more important come April in the next couple of months as teams jockey for position. But as soon as playoff hockey rolls around, you are going to identify the other team's best player, and your goal, there will be people on your roster, agitators, whose primary role will be to get the opposing team's best player out of their element.
Absolutely.
Through physical play. We're not talking dangerous, overly aggressive type of behavior, but you're going to body them because you have to take them off of their game to give your team the best chance possible.
Yes.
It sounds like these announcers are just sort of airing their grievances without identifying any real ways of addressing this issue. Pettersson is having a special season.
Right.
He's an excellent rookie, and he's already missed time due to a similar dirty-ish play earlier this season. He missed some time after being pulled down near the boards.
Yeah. And that one was fair enough. That was a dirty, malicious hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
42 points, 22 goals, 20 assists, 17 points above the next best rookie. He's having a special rookie season, obviously the front runner to win the Calder. You think of McDavid's rookie season when he was robbed of half of his season due to the collarbone injury.
Yes.
Brandon Manning pulling him into the boards. Now they're teammates. So maybe people don't want to see the league's best players out of the game.
Right.
You'd be a little less upset if a mid-tier, lower-tier guy gets injured, as horrible as it is to say, because people pay to see the stars. Maybe they're airing their grievances, but taking fighting out of the it's not going to happen.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like a solution.
And maybe it is my bad for biting on it, because like you say, maybe it is just they had nothing better to talk about that week. And so they're like, we got to fill some airtime. So what do we do about all these star players getting targeted? And you make a great point, that it's happened a couple times earlier in the year. You go back to, like you say, Connor McDavid's first year. Those were incidents where, you could say players crossed the line in an engagement with a star player, and you don't like to see that happen. But the problem is you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say there is no place for fighting in this game.
Right.
And then go out and say, well, hey, why are these guys going after the other team's best players? What can we do about that? Well, what you can do about it is have someone there to protect them.
Yeah.
But if you don't want fighting in the game, there's no protection.
Right.
So it's just kind of a mind-boggling juxtaposition of things. Yeah. And basically, I guess that's my point, is you can't have your cake and eat it too. And part of the problem, too, is that I feel like led up to this flare-up was you had people like John Tortorella and Brian Burke saying, you know what, I don't like how friendly these players are to one another. There's not enough hatred in this game. It's like, don't you think the nature of the game is violent enough without the players having to hate each other? Can't they have a laugh? I mean, they're going to be smashing each other into the boards 20 seconds later anyway. Can't they crack a joke before the drop of the puck? Like,
you got to carb up before the game. You got to hate your opponent during the game. You got to hate them after the game, and that's old school. That's what they want, I guess.
Oh, anyway, enough of that. So maybe that's going to be the topic you can set your watch to in future NHL seasons. Why are these star players being targeted, and what can we do about it?
Yeah.
Bring back Colton Orr.
Yeah,
that's what you can
get rid
do.
of fighting.
All right, Team NT speed skating team in the house when we come back on Cabin Sports Radio.
The Cabin Sports Radio podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward, and we continue with the countdown to the Canada Winter Games in Red Deer, Alberta, just over a month now. And we've got members of Team NT speed skating in the house right now. 3 of the 7 members that were named earlier this week. We've got a Yellowknife contingent, Daphne Kluche, Sylvan Rourke, and Lance Dizon in the studio. Of course, rounding out the Team NT speed skating team are Ren Acorn, also from Yellowknife, and 3 from Inuvik, Stryden Holt Griffin, Dalton McLeod, and Braden Piesick. Welcome, everybody, to the Cabin Sports Radio, that is. Obviously, very excited to get to the Canada Winter Games. I was talking with Sylvan just a bit off air before we got going here, and he's feeling a bit nervous. Getting towards the games, or just over a month now, rather. So let's get into it. Daphne, is this how many multi-sport games will this be for you?
Well, I went to 2 Arctic Winter Games for speed skating, and it's my first Canada Winter Games.
Okay, so a vet as far as multi-sport games go, but first Canada Winter Games. What are you looking forward to?
Just trying my best and have personal best times, and just having fun.
Are your expectations high, or are you just kind of going in, just basically seeing what you can do?
Just going in and see what I can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that kind of the way that you have to approach these games? I mean, generally, I assume you get a very good sense of what you're going to be competing with leading up to games like this. You've got the Western Elite Competition, number 3 in Calgary this weekend, January 17th to 20th. So you've got a decent idea leading up. You've been skating for a while. Do you feel any pressure?
A little bit. I really want to do good, and I know there's going to be a lot of people watching too, so I want to do my best, But it's also, Quebec is a really good province. They're the best, I feel in Canada.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel I don't know, I'll just try my best.
So really just being able to compete is kind of a win on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Sylvan, same question. You were mentioning off the air, like I said, that it's a little over a month. You're getting a little bit nervous. What are you looking forward to most?
I don't really know what to expect, really. It's really big. It's probably going to be one of the biggest competitions that I'm going to be doing in my skating career. And, being there, I've went to the last Canada Games watching my sister, so I kind of know what to expect. But still, it's not like competing.
Right.
And I don't really know how to go in there and to expect or to know how I'm going to feel, because it's not like going in a competition where you've done this 100 times. Mm-hmm. It's so much bigger, and it's almost overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And
part of it's got to be your own expectations. Like you mentioned, you've been to a Canada Winter Games before. You watched your sister compete. That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so you were, you've learned quite a bit since then, I imagine. But you got a sense of the atmosphere. So I imagine that it's kind of your imagination as to what goes on behind the scenes when you're an athlete that's actually getting ready to compete.
I feel like I almost have a routine by now, but it's so much bigger that I will be a lot more stressed out with everything. And there will be a lot more emotions and people, and it'll be broadcasted too on TV, which adds another stress to it. I think it's probably going to be my first being broadcasted live,
right?
And being able to know that my family in France will be able to watch it is a pretty big thing too,
right?
So yeah,
How many people are going to be watching from France?
I don't know. It's because of the time difference, I don't know how many can or
Right.
will get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch a couple races of me. But still, it's that idea behind it that they could, and a lot more people could, and this might be a start to a career. But who knows?
I'm going to wager a guess there will be more up at 6 a.m. watching than you think. So very exciting stuff. Is there anything that you can think of? How do you manage that stress?
It's taking deep breaths, but
have your coaches talked to you guys about any sort of thing like that, managing the stress of, just the anticipation of competing on a large scale like this?
We actually just saw a girl that was talking about how to manage your stress before a competition and how you're supposed to be in a level of 1 to 10.
Okay.
We went to Calgary for a competition 2 months ago, and we saw her, and then she's just explaining us to just breathe and to visualize the race and just to not stress too much about it, because it's just a race, right?
Right. Yeah.
So just listen to music and I don't know,
find something to ground yourself, sort of, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It may feel like it's everything that's happening right now, but that is really good advice. Lance, this is how many multi-sport games for you?
This is my third games. I went to Westerns for badminton and Canada Summer Games for track.
Okay, and what are you most looking forward to do at this upcoming Canada Winter Games?
I'm most excited to go to such a high caliber event with such awesome athletes, and everyone's been trying so hard all season, all the career to make it to this point, and it's really exciting to see the results of that work.
Yeah, you seem like you've got a really tight-knit group here. And I mean, not knowing myself, I've never speed skated myself. I'm not, privy to what the kind of team atmosphere is like in that, but how is that helped in a way? Is there a chemistry between your team that you feel?
We've definitely spent a lot of time together, and I feel like that sense of community has helped my stress levels and my comfort in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any expectations going into these games?
I just want to be able to focus on myself and do the best I can and not let my anxiety worsen my results.
Right on. So this weekend, January 17th to 20th, you are all traveling for the third Western Elite competition, kind of a tune-up before the Canada Games, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you all looking forward to there?
Kind of knowing what it's going to look like a lot, the competition, and what we're going to be facing, and it's knowing and not, it would be a preparation almost of being able to know what to expect and not just going to Canada Games and being overwhelmed by the competition and that saying, oh, this guy's really good, and saying, oh, I should have done this, but you can't really, and then having to try to deal with that and being in such a big atmosphere with all these other stress at Canada Games would be too much.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to go to a smaller competition and getting a bit of that feel is a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think that would be probably why it's such an important reason why we're going there.
Right. Okay. And any final words from your coaches or anything in the lead up? Any words of encouragement? Any kind of cautions? Is there anything that they've kind of got in your head going into this tournament?
Well, I think they just want us to do our best and to not let the get disqualified and and just try our best. And I think they believe in us and they're excited for us.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're all very excited, and we are all, of course, looking forward to seeing you at the Canada Winter Games in Red Deer just over a month from now. Lance, Sylvain, Daphne, thank you so much for coming in today and being on Cabin Sports Radio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck in Red Deer.
The CSR Podcast.
Some interesting news from the world of tennis today. The Australian Open going on right now, and longtime champion tennis player Andy Murray saying that he might be packing it in.
Yeah, pretty emotional. He held a tearful press conference on Friday, actually, leading up to the one of 4 majors in the ATP, announcing that this year would be his last, and ideally he would hang it up in July after Wimbledon. He is a British tennis player, so that would be a fitting end for him, someone who's won two British Opens, 2 titles at Wimbledon rather, and one U.S. Open. But he lost. He lost last night, and it was pretty tough to see.
Yeah.
He's always been in the big 4, as they say, in the ATP.
Yeah.
And it's funny, just even looking at the standings today. Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and he was always sort of slid into that 4th. Andy Murray. They always referred to as the big 4 in men's tennis. Dominant. It's amazing to see that continued level of excellence. Generational talents really will definitely go down as one of the all-time greats, not just because of his performance on the court, also well admired off the court as well. Serena Williams quoted as saying women tennis players love Andy Murray just because he's fought for them as well. Challenged reporters over the years for their coverage of male tennis versus female tennis. But at the same time, you can't deny his accomplishments on the court. The only person, male or female, to hold 2 Olympic gold medals in singles tennis after winning in 2012 and 2016 as well. So he did go out in defeat in 5 sets yesterday, so he is out at the Australian Open, and pending his health, the state of his hip, hopefully will make it to Wimbledon in July, but may even end up retiring before then. Time will tell.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of sitting on the fence, just kind of he doesn't want to say he's announcing his retirement, but seems like he's heading that way, but still kind of, leaving that opportunity open should things improve with him health-wise. Here is Andy Murray following his first round Australian Open loss.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. Thank you so much to everyone that came out tonight. I mean, I've honestly loved playing here over the years. It's an amazing place to play tennis. If this was my last match, like you say, amazing way to end. I gave literally everything I had. It wasn't enough tonight, so congratulations to Roberto and his team. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, but just, thanks again. Thanks to everyone for all of the support, my team, my family who are here supporting me, and everyone who's contributed to my career over the years. This guy was actually my first coach when I came on tour.
You've done very well.
Considering, it's impressive. But yeah, look, I don't know, maybe I'll see you again. I'll do everything possible I'll do everything possible to try. I'll need to have, if I want to go again, I'll need to have like a big operation, which there's no guarantees I'll be able to come back from anyway. But, I'll give it my best shot. And thank you. Thanks again. Cheers.
The CSR Podcast.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. So as you heard last, the audio from Andy Murray, who is announcing his possible retirement from the world of professional tennis following his first-round loss at the Australian Open. He's 31 years old, and you could hear the emotion in his voice, sounding like he was barely holding it together, so close to being overcome by emotion while announcing that is possibly his last game of professional tennis.
It definitely sounded like someone that will not be returning to Australia for next year's Australian Open. And if he could ride off into the sunset after Wimbledon as a very renowned British tennis player, I think that would be the way he would like to go. But people will remember him for his play. He was also a character, left it on the court. You could see through the 5-set match he had yesterday, he was laboring. He was in pain. But always a character, always one. Tennis is always sort of classified as a gentleman's sport.
Yes.
But he would be one to get at himself a little bit. He was a vocal guy.
Yeah.
Getting after himself, it's not malicious. He's
not John McEnroe.
No.
But
so he will be very dearly missed, I think, by the entire tennis community and fans around the world. So let's hope he can make it till Wimbledon.
That's tough too. I mean, tennis is traditionally a young person's sport. At only 31 years old, you'd think he probably should still have some good years ahead of him.
Yeah.
And by the way, 37-year-old Roger Federer has just advanced to his second round of the Australian Open for the 20th consecutive year.
Yeah.
So nuts to that, being a young person.
It's remarkable, the amount of continued excellence for those top three. And he was always lumped in with those three. Really, generational talents will all go down as all-time greats, and all have given very nice tributes since Friday's press release, or press conference, rather. Acknowledging him as one of the all-time greats that they would have had fierce rivalries with, but also there's that mutual respect on and off the court as well. So nice to see. He'll definitely be missed.
And with any luck, more heated rivalries to come.
That's right.
Who knows? You never know. Turning to the National Football League, the NFL playoffs, of course, underway, right in the thick of it right now. The divisional rounds over. We have got 4 left to go. The matchups we are going to see: the Chiefs versus the Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints versus the LA Rams. I think I got that right?
That's right.
So the matchups?
Yeah. It was a really, really good weekend of football. And that is really a precursor to what next weekend's going to be.
Yes.
2 highlight reel matchups. You have the top 4 offenses. That seems to be the direction that all sports are trending in now. If you can overpower people with dominating offense, you will win the day. So the top 4 offenses across the entire NFL advancing to next weekend's conference championships, and they should be really, really good. Arguably the greatest dynasty in all of sports in the New England Patriots, taking on the Chiefs, one of the best during the regular season. You would have to think the MVP frontrunner in Patrick Mahomes. First year starting for his club after the Chiefs traded Alex Smith in the offseason. Throws for 5,000 yards, 50 TDs, and 12 interceptions.
No big deal.
Absolutely remarkable. Posts the best quarterback rating. So it's a really good storyline. You've got who many people regard as the greatest of all time versus clearly someone he could pass the torch off to, this up-and-coming superstar in Patrick Mahomes, who in one season you would think would walk away with the MVP.
It's going to be an interesting clash of styles in this one, too. Like you say, both have great offenses, but Patrick Mahomes, kind of a freewheeling gunslinger type. You never really know what he's going to do, but he's one of these players that has all of the tools, and you can never really count him out of making a play. Even one of those rare types of quarterbacks, when everything is falling down around him, you don't count him out from making something happen until he is pulled down to the ground, because he can escape like anything, wing the ball 50 yards downfield, make a play like you've never seen anyone make before. The kid is phenomenal.
We've seen it all, and just in one season, the youngest player to ever throw for 5,000 yards You've seen the no-look passes.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he feels like it feels like. But the
kind of thing that gives coaches heart attacks.
Yeah.
And he makes it work.
He does. But the knock against the Chiefs coming into this game was their defense, and they silenced every single one of their critics. And since week 7, the midway point of the season, they tightened things up. They ratcheted things up. And the defense won the day for them. They got off to an early start, which was key. And now
that seemed to be the big thing coming in for the Chiefs was could they actually start the game stellar? And like you say, another critical point that they silenced and moved forward and beat the Colts 31-13. And this is a Colts team that was also looking like they were kind of becoming a team of destiny a little bit. Andrew Luck, who of course, has been an elite quarterback in the NFL for, pretty much ever since he was drafted. Looking like he was going to pick this team up on his back and carry them possibly right through the playoffs. But, young Patrick Mahomes getting it done for the Kansas City Chiefs. They move on to face, like you say, arguably the greatest quarterback in NFL history, Tom Brady, as always, leading the New England Patriots. And like I said earlier, a bit of a clash of styles because you got this gunslinger, this young freewheeling guy in Patrick Mahomes against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's offense that has been, well, that's not how they survive. That's not how they thrive, is Tom Brady scrambling around, doing things that you've never seen quarterbacks do. It's a very controlled, very uniform offense. Surgical.
Clinical.
Much better word.
Yeah. 8th straight AFC conference. It's that continued excellence we were talking about in our previous segment. It's you want to. It's hard to believe, really, that sustained winning, the 13th time in the Brady and Belichick era that we will see the New England Patriots in an AFC championship game. They'll have to do it on the road. They did beat the Chiefs on home field, where they were the only undefeated home team throughout the course of the regular season and into the playoffs. They will have to do so in Kansas City, and this is a team that would really like to get a win. Their first, I believe it's the first time they'll be hosting a championship game since 1994. They only have one Super Bowl victory to their name. So in front of a pretty hungry fan base that would like to get a win, especially in a matchup like this. 34-44 for Brady, throws for 340 yards and a touchdown. And we've just come to expect this same level of excellence from him. Really, there was, I believe it was before last season, all the storylines of all the turmoil that goes on between Robert Kraft, Belichick, Brady, the fractures that there could be within the organization. And they just continue to put that to rest by winning football games, advancing to the Super Bowl last year. Many didn't really see them going there. They went the year before and won.
Winning solves a lot of problems.
3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. So it's when it comes down to playoff football, it is very hard to bet against Tom Brady.
Not that myself or really anyone else didn't expect to see the New England Patriots at this stage in the NFL playoffs, but just from a personal standpoint, I'm not even a Chargers fan, but I was really hoping for the Chargers to win this game. Phillip Rivers has been such a hard luck quarterback. He's been an all-star quarterback that has carried a garbage team for so many years. I really thought this was going to be his redemption year. Not to be. Tom Brady getting in the way, as he always
scoring
does.
On their first 4 possessions, essentially putting it out of reach by the second quarter.
Yes. Speaking of elder statesmen, Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints beating the Philadelphia Eagles 20-14 to advance to the NFC Championship. This is a team that it's been a bit of a while coming to get back to this point. They were previously one of the premier elite teams. I can't remember exactly when their last Super Bowl, when the Super Bowl victory would have been.
2009. 2009. That was the last time they even went as far as the conference championships.
Yeah, and then they had all the turmoil about the what was it with the coach and the that they were going after players, the bounty gate. Yep. That was the one.
Yep.
And there were some coach suspensions and player suspensions from that. And it really seemed like there was kind of a dark cloud over this team after that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, despite having Drew Brees, one of the best, again, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, despite having him at the helm for so many years since, being, you know, pretty steady as Drew Brees is.
Yeah.
Just have not been a team that's been in that echelon. But here they are back and looking pretty unstoppable.
He threw 28 of 38, 300 yards. Michael Thomas with another monster game, 170 yards. The question now sort of becomes what happens to the Eagles after their excellent run last year to a Super Bowl victory. You had Carson Wentz go down last year with a torn ACL, goes down this year with a fractured back, and you had Nick Foles, the hero of last year, step into the fold, delivered last year, comes within 2 minutes. It looked like they would have a fourth quarter push last night before a costly and untimely pick. What happens there now? Both Wentz and Foles would like to lead a team of their own.
Yeah.
You'd have to think they're not going to bring Foles back into the mix next year, so we could have seen his last game with an Eagles, and it had all the makings to be another miracle run with them picking up some steam heading into the playoffs, but not to be.
Yeah, that seems to be the way people are thinking about it, that Nick Foles is inevitably going to be on his way out. I don't personally quite understand it, but you know, it is what it is, I suppose. And finally, the LA Rams defeating the Dallas
Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys 30-22 to advance to the NFC Championship. Very exciting for them. This is what, LA's second season in LA since moving from St. Louis?
That's right.
So yeah, obviously very exciting for their fan base there. LA creating some space in the second. 17 unanswered points, 20-7 halftime lead. Didn't let up. Fantastic defense. So maybe they could be the team that is the exception to the rule, the new rule that you were mentioning earlier, where offense is kind of taking over.
Yeah, and they did it by running the ball. C.J. Anderson, Todd Gurley combining for almost 250 yards when the Cowboys, as a team, including passing, had just over 300. So they were pushing the pace through their rushing game. It should be pretty fun. Both the Rams and the Saints, a league best 13-3 throughout the course of the regular season. The best, all four teams that had byes advancing to the conference championships. You've got a great story that tells itself between the up-and-coming versus who many see as the GOAT. And then you got the two best teams in the NFC clashing it out. So should be a really good weekend of football all ahead of February 3rd in Atlanta, Super Bowl.
Lots of good football coming up. Very much looking forward to that. 4 teams left, Mike. Oh, baby. That'll do it for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio. Don't forget to download the Cabin Sports Radio podcast, SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. See you next week.